Could anyone online attempt to say something, please? That would be great.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Oh, it's working.
Oh, good.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real quiet. Grading final products, right? Grading. Yes. Yeah, we start tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Final exam pretty strict. Yeah, I'm through the guy. I was off 5 days. Yeah, good show. So
Yeah,
riding the high.
recover from last night.
Yeah. Yeah, that was any recovery. That was fun. Yes. Do we feel like we're able to begin?
A lot of people
A lot of people online. Okay. I think the technology is all.
I think it is.
All right, welcome everybody. Sorry to stop in the middle of the conversation over there, but the riffraff needs to settle down a little. We'll first of all, of course, do our roll call. So go ahead.
Okay. First up, we have Allen. Here. Banford. Barrett. Okay, Brandenburg.
Here.
Thank you. Carmenica. Carmack.
Here.
Chambliss.
Here.
Chang. All right, Corley.
Here.
Thank you. Croft. Davis.
Here.
Deweese. Dutt. Dyer,
Here.
Edelman. Here. Elman. Here. Urban.
Here.
You. Evans.
Here.
Galt. Here. Grappius. Here. Green. Here. Hadley.
Here.
Hester.
Here.
You. Yara Pasmino. Khan.
Here.
Nice. Here. Kramer. Gavin Lee. Sungwon Lee.
Here.
Lou.
Here.
McKinnon.
Here.
Mason. McClenny.
Here.
McLean.
Here.
Olivier Parker. Here. Overfield.
Here.
Richter.
Here.
Riker. Here. Thank you. Roberts.
Here.
Rollins. I see her there.
Yeah.
Here. Thank you. Scullen.
Here.
Shepherd. Here. Shin. Shoemake.
Here.
Snipes.
Here.
Swift.
Here.
Sykes.
Here.
Talbot.
Here.
Van Valen.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
You. Way. Williams.
Here.
Thank you. Wofford.
I'm here.
And Yoder.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. I think everyone pretty much is here. A few people that we didn't hear from. Some of you we heard from really nice and loudly. You were really here. That's good to know. I'm excited to welcome you to our last faculty senate meeting of this semester. Excited mostly because of all the work you've put in and I've been able to observe and be a part of over the semester. So let me just begin with a thank you to everyone for your hard work and for attending these meetings in person or virtually and doing the work you do on our committees. We're going to go ahead and the minutes, I'm just going to note were already electronically approved on November 18th. Now we'll have our administrative reports and we'll start with the president.
Thank you, sir. I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. Got a chance to relax. I'm going to start off with 3 celebrations because there are some great things to celebrate. One, if you have not attended Winter West Wonderland at UWG, you have missed out on something that's been tremendous. It truly has been a wonderland. We were 7 on AtlantaParent.com as one of the best holiday experiences in the Atlanta metropolitan area. And that's saying a lot. There were, I think, 44 holiday experiences there, and ours had never existed before. So being 7 was pretty fantastic. But if you've attended, you have watched hundreds and hundreds of people who have come from the communities that we are in service to, many of which have never been on campus, and walked into amazing student artwork, amazing music and vendors and food, and an experience that, as we've gotten feedback on it, has given them an opportunity to feel a sense of connection to this institution, but holiday spirit and enlivenment that I think is pretty special for all of those who put so much effort and energy in. That is across the institution. Thank you for that work and congratulations on what is, I hope, a tradition for the University of West Georgia, because it's been a tremendous success. Lindsay Robinson in particular, I think is owed a special thanks. She really led that project, right? And put together all of the pieces. She was the kind of the tip of the spear in terms of project management and did a spectacular job. Appreciate everybody's contributions on that front. Second, if you were in Noonan this morning, in 35-degree weather on the link, you would have had the opportunity to see us install and cut the ribbon on Kelly Cadina's new sculpture. So Kelly is a student of ours in visual art. It was a wonderful example of partnership. And I say that because the mayor of Noonan was there along with city council members and the city manager, assistant city manager, faculty members who mentored Kelly through that sculpture. It's a beautiful sculpture made of aluminum. The aluminum came from Bonnell Manufacturing. They donated that aluminum. And I will say my favorite sentence of the day was, that was really great aluminum to work with, right? And I say that because Bonnell was so proud of that. The Hollis Trust participated in that. It's a great partnership for a permanent installation of a UWG students sculpture on the lake, passed by so many on a daily basis. And it was a great contribution to just the quality of life in this region, right? And an opportunity for a student to cut the ribbon for the first time on a work that she did. And it was an incredible piece of work. I saw it for the first time when it was sitting in front of the Noonan campus. And I walked in and I called Russell Crutchfield and said, what is this amazing piece of art that is sitting in front of campus? And he said, well, don't fall in love too much because it's leaving to go to the lake. If you get a chance to go out, you will see some photos. We'll be distributing those throughout campus. If you know Kelly, congratulate her on really a tremendous accomplishment. It was fantastic. I'll make one other announcement, and it's not a new one. It's been about 24 hours old. Trent North, who is the superintendent in Douglas County, a two-time UWG alum, and currently a student in our school improvement doctoral program, won superintendent of the year for the state of Georgia last night. That is a reflection on our work. It is a reflection of this institution, especially one that's producing more educators and education leaders than anybody else in the state. With that, I'm going to shift to SAC COC. I know Kevin Waltney's here. I asked Kevin to come and brief a number of the core team members for SAC COC because we are in the 2024 class for SAC COC. Our report is due to SACs next September. Trust me when I say that a very, very, very important endeavor. It is a multi-year endeavor to put together. It requires incredible documentation across the institution, tremendous attention to detail. I share that with you because everybody does have to be focused on accreditation and changing principles in SAC COC. We'll be going to the national meeting next week, and we will be briefed by the vice president that will be over essentially our engagement. And that will last for a good long time. We're going to talk a lot about SACs over the coming months and probably a year as we go through that process, because our 10-year reaffirmation is a big deal. I will say the same thing to you that I said to the Provost Council earlier this week. If you think the challenges that we've seen in higher ed have been tough over the last couple of years, I can tell you that is extremely challenging when your accreditation is challenged in any way. So we are trying to do an exceptional job. If any of you are called upon to contribute data, to contribute records, whatever it is, please attend to that responsibility with due haste, because it's critical for us. We just had a Board of Regents meeting, the last one for this period. We don't start up again until January. For those of you who don't know, when the Board of Regents go on a hiatus, which they do twice a year, once in the middle of summer and then once for kind of the December holiday season, they transfer over all of their authority to the chancellor for those periods. It's really just a point of information. No action has been taken as a result of that, but we won't be meeting again. There's an 8-week gap in us meeting when there's usually just 4 weeks. Board of Regents approved the Nexus degree in supply chain logistics out of Richards College of Business. We did not have any other business in front of them that day. Nor were any major policy shifts occurring. I share that with you because a couple of things that are in front of them right now are testing requirements. And we're pushing the board a lot on getting definitive responses on testing requirements for admission to all of the universities because it's affecting our enrollment patterns in very meaningful ways. Every time I come to you, I'm going to continue to share out what's happened at the Board of Regents. And this time it was not particularly lively. However, right down the street from the Board of Regents, it was. We are just about to start a legislative session. And it is going to be a very interesting legislative session because a couple of things have happened. One, Speaker David Ralston passed away. He had been the Speaker of the House for more than a decade and had provided really tremendous leadership to the House. I say that because there's a lot of money available in the state of Georgia right now for mental health advocacy, outreach, for new programs and initiatives and innovations. That is all because of David Ralston's leadership. Last year, he stood up just before the governor spoke and announced that the number one thing that he was working on in terms of budget or resource allocation is going to be mental health in the state of Georgia. When the Speaker of the House says that, you know, action is about to occur. He stepped down as Speaker of the House 3 weeks ago and passed away the next week. So we have a new Speaker of the House. We have new leadership in the Senate all the way down. We'll have new leadership in the House to a degree. Some of that team's going to stay in place. You're going to have 45 new members of the House. You're going to have a multitude of new senators. You have essentially every bit of work that has been done in the last session has to be redone because you essentially have a whole new Congress. So we'll be spending a lot of time in Atlanta and a lot of time with legislative delegations from throughout the state, both to advocate for key initiatives for UWG, which is always critical, but also higher education policy broadly, which I think I've mentioned to you before, is done as a USG. So the USG gives us positions on certain policies, and we all lobby together. I say that so you hear that the University of Georgia took a particular position on something that's not specifically related to the University of Georgia. That is generally because the USG has agreed that that's our collective position. That will begin at the beginning of January, and you know, I have to get excited about going and doing that work. We are well positioned with most of our legislative delegations across the state and certainly locally. We've got some new members of the delegation who have come in. David Huddleston is the new member of the House of Representatives for us. Randy Nix just stepped down, but David's been on campus a lot as of late, spending a lot of time refamiliarizing himself or deepening his familiarization with UWG. We've done that across the legislative delegation. We'll continue to. I'll give you updates on the legislative session as we go forward. That probably won't take kind of full hold until maybe February or March. The governor's budget should come out in January. Once that governor's budget comes out, that's when the real action will occur. And two last things. One, commencement is next week. We have 3 commencements next week, which will be fantastic celebration. So many students. If you haven't attended commencement, please do. It makes a big difference to students. You get a chance to be part of that energy and their exit and what comes next. So I encourage everybody to come out and be part of that celebration. Finally, I would say, I hope everybody has a successful finals and exit to the semester and get some rest over the holidays because we'll be back at it. With that, I'll take any question on any subject. Please.
I heard that Florida is in its region level looking at shopping occurrence every 10 years. So that they may eventually move from tax COT. There's some sort of a sense that Georgia is looking at that as well.
I'm gonna repeat the question for those online. That is a fantastic question. So the question was, Florida is shopping, I heard that Florida is shopping at creditors at the Board of Regents level. Every Florida university, each of the 12 has its own board of trustees. They don't report totally up to the Board of Regents, but the Board of Regents can make a lot of decisions over the state of Florida. When I think about shopping at creditors, you remember about 5 years ago, the federal government changed the rules related to regional accreditation. It just said you had to have accreditation, which meant the 4 major accreditors in the United States for public universities no longer had to be 4. You could go and, we could use the same accreditors as the University of Oregon if we wanted to. For us, that would be a decision by the USG, or at least in concert with the USG. So the question is that same conversation occurring at the Board of Regents level? At this point, I have heard absolutely no conversation about that. And we do talk about sex all of the time. But there has not been, if a system or a university was to do that, there'd be some advantage economically or strategically, or there's some frustration with the association. I heard no talk of that in the state of Georgia. Doesn't mean it's not possible, because it is permissible, and nobody has changed the creditors yet, to my knowledge, in the United States. We'll see what happens after somebody makes that initial shift.
Thank you.
Great question.
Other questions? Anyone online?
Okay, thank you all
Thanks so much. Provost?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday, and happy last day of the fall semester. And we're shifting into final exams. And when we entered, I think some folks were grading papers, and I know you're very busy with that. So thank you for another successful, fantastic semester. I hope that the classes end well, and in particular that all of the grades are submitted on time. Right? So I'll use the platform to remind folks. We get to 99.99%. There might be 1 or 2, and it's often a technical glitch, but appreciate you all doing all of the work, not only during the semester to help the students learn, but then also dotting the I's and crossing the T's and finishing up the semester so strongly. I'm going to focus my comments on a couple of things, and I appreciate Dr. Rivers and the opportunity to talk about some items that faculty have brought and questions, so I'll address those, but then happy to take more specific questions as we go. I'm going to echo the president's comments about Winter West, and I want to focus on, as I mentioned last time we were together in Faculty Senate, the motivation behind this was to showcase student and faculty and staff creations and what people are able to create and bring to market. I'll share with you that over 2,000 people have walked through the door and participated in the first 3 nights of this. And that is bringing the community to campus. As I mentioned before, once you see this great resource in place that UWG is, that increases the likelihood that a student is coming here or a family member is going to say, yeah, you really need to check out West Georgia and put that on your short list. So we will see great results, not only in stronger connections with community members, but also in enrollment and people understanding opportunity that they have. Additionally, the folks that are selling product, we've got some fantastic sculptures, pottery. We've used a laser cutter, and so if you don't have your 2022 ornaments, they're there. But it showcases that our students can have this entrepreneurial spirit and run a business for themselves and generate revenue, helping to increase affordability of their higher education experience through activities like this. And I'm really excited to see that the sculptures, the light sculptures that our art students and our computing students have done, the company that did the larger light installations across campus for this saw their work and said, I can hire them, I can sell their products across the metro Atlanta area. So because of the quality of what they've done, they're going to have jobs, they're going to have sales beyond just what they have created here. And that's exactly what this was all about, was showcasing the talent that is UWG students and community, and then helping people launch the next things for them. The other side I'd like to celebrate is, if you haven't seen this yet, I think it's hot off the presses. There's PDF versions, Dr. Ingela will be sending or make this available on the ORSP website. This is the annual report for research and scholarship at UWG for the past year. Beyond the numbers and the increase in scholarship and external funding that we primarily measured by expenditure, there are 36 pages of this, which I think is 75% of this is an enumeration of all of the scholarship of our faculty, the work that people do, and we'll talk about workload in a moment, but a significant portion of the activity that faculty do outside of service and their teaching is focused on scholarship and creative activity and research. And I want to commend the faculty for the past year and what they've been able to accomplish. There's a diverse, wide variety of what you all are working on in various academic areas, really connecting regionally, nationally, and internationally to showcase the excellence of our faculty. So I do hope that you see a copy of this. And if you're like me, when I was a faculty member and active in research, I would scroll down and make sure that all of mine were listed there. If there's anything missing, it's DELA at, right? And, we want to make sure everybody's in there, but we will get that corrected, at least in the digital version, and want to make sure that everybody's work is highlighted and showcased there. Looking to the upcoming year, let's pause in December and enjoy the holiday and reflect and celebrate on our graduates that we will have crossing the stage and turning the tassel in just a week. Additionally, though, we're looking towards this upcoming academic year, and I'm happy to share that we've got really strong lead indicators. Kim Stranich and Strategic Enrollment Management reports that in November, we had this no-fee November. You probably saw many places doing this. UWG was as well. We saw an increase in 72% in applications. And then we will realize enrollment growth because of that. In graduate, year over year, we're looking at a 42% increase for spring 23 in applications, 17% increase in enrollment. And for the upcoming fall 23, an 11% increase year over year in apps at this time. And admits still early, so the numbers are a little bit smaller. So any of the mathematicians in the room will know the stat I'm about to throw out there is perhaps artificially inflated, but it's an increase of 128% of admits year over year. Folks are seeing UWG, they're seeing our academic programs, they're very interested in coming here, and I'm inspired and excited to see that projected growth. One of the questions that was asked leading into today's Faculty Senate was, during this time, and I discussed the personnel changes and that process last time we were in Faculty Senate, one of the questions came up was, well, what exactly was that process? Why this area over that area? And I will refer back to the charts that I've provided showing enrollment growth and decline in different areas, credit hour production growth and decline in different areas. And so to be very clear and transparent, the faculty, the leaders across academic affairs looking at these needed resource shifts focused on that credit hour change. And what are the areas that have been in decline sustainably for quite a while? And the personnel adjustments were based on that in excess capacity in areas. And the example I've shared before, and I'll state again, is if your area had grown by 300 students, then you would be coming and saying, we need additional faculty. In the same way, if your area has declined in an area by a large number of students, then we need to adjust resources into those areas of growth. At the same time, we also need to be aware that we're shifting workloads. Research and scholarship, as I've highlighted here today, is very important. But in times where enrollment is down in certain areas, the faculty handbook default is a 4-4 teaching limit. I strongly advocate for that to be reduced to a 3-4 or a 3-3 whenever possible. But in times when we've got increased demand in areas or reduced personnel in areas, perhaps shifting from lecturers and senior lecturers to our tenured faculty, then the net is a need to shift and adjust workload potentially. My message to the deans has been to work with the department chairs and work with the faculty and look at addressing this in a number of ways. Perhaps by reducing the number of electives at the upper level. Many academic programs would say to students, pick 3 of these 8 courses as you study. And I strongly advocate for that flexibility and that diversity. And I hope that in areas where we might need to be compressing that as options, hopefully temporarily, we can get to a day with increased enrollment where we're able to offer more options for them. But if I've got 8 courses and 7 students apiece, that's not sustainable. We need to compress that, hopefully temporarily, as one option to address the changing demand. Another would be to increase the capacity in courses. Rather than 8 sections of 25, perhaps 6 sections of 30. And all of that is on the table. So as you're working with your department chairs, I ask that faculty and chairs and deans look at all of these options, not just adjusting workload to a 3-4 or a 4-4, but also what can we do and what we're offering. Always mindful that we need to make sure that students can graduate within that 4-year time frame, or for the graduate programs within those 30 or 36 hours. So let's meet the need. We can do course overloads, we can reduce options, hopefully temporarily, in addition to shifting those workloads. I also want to be very clear though, and this came up in some of our earlier conversations with the deans and also with Dr. Reber, we need to be authentic and supportive of faculty. If the handbook states that the default workload is a 4-4 teaching with scholarship and service making up the remainder, someone should be able to progress in their career successfully and be promoted and tenured with positive pre-tenure and positive post-tenure reviews and positive annual reviews with a 4-4 load. It's disingenuous to say in the handbook that the 4-4 is the default, and then you're not tenurable, you're not promotable under that model. And I know that CACSE is addressing this. I spoke with Dean Gagnon earlier this week to make it very clear that this is a diverse workload. There shouldn't be a better or worse. Some faculty are very interested in a heightened teaching emphasis in their workload. Others are interested in more scholarship. And we need to have that flexibility. But the underpinning of all of this is that people should be supported in their careers, and it should be very possible for them to progress and be promoted and tenured on this diverse workload. So I want to give assurance to everyone in the room and online, as well as based on record, that regardless of your workload, this is honored and recognized as valuable work to the institution. One of the other things that came up in talking about workload was for my scholarship and annual reviews. We're about to enter that season in Q3 for this upcoming calendar year, the current academic year. And as faculty are submitting, here is what I accomplished this past year, it would be very helpful to also project in, here is what I plan to be doing. Venues that I hope to be published in, conferences that I would like to attend and present my work. The advantage of this would be that as the chair says, yes, that's fantastic, we can pencil in and budget for the support necessary to attend these conferences. Place that we'd like to avoid is the chair says, yes, we expect scholarship. We want you to publish your work. Faculty does and goes and does this and achieves a very prestigious publication and gets admitted to present their work in a conference. And then regrettably is not supported financially to attend that. So it's very helpful proactively as you all are presenting the work that you're proposing. My expectation of leaders across deans and chairs would be to pencil in and budget and say, this faculty person is targeting 2 or 3 conferences, and we need to make sure that they're supported as much as possible in our budgets, so that when they go and they get that publication, then they can go and present and connect with their colleagues. I'm committed to that, and I'm messaging to leadership across academic affairs that rather than being reactive, let's be proactive in that regard. Another question that came up was the future and the diversity of liberal arts, and I'd like to expand that conversation to talk more broadly about academic programs going forward. I appreciate that we've got a couple of programs on the agenda today that the UPC and the GPC are bringing forward. Reflecting on what we've worked on in the past year, many of the regions and those businesses that we're connecting to are very appreciative of the fact that UWG is embedding Nexus degrees into our undergraduate programs, that a student can do dual enrollment, come and get a Nexus degree, and perhaps 1 year after high school graduation be employed and advancing their career in their chosen discipline, and then continue on in those bachelor's degrees. Rather than standalone Nexus degrees, the accelerated bachelor's to master's work, the ABM, and allowing through the USG policy for students to be able to work towards graduate programs and kind of double dip in some regard to say, I can take up to 9 credits of graduate courses as I'm an undergraduate. If you stack all of these options together, dual enrollment, Nexus, bachelor's, the ABM, and efficient graduate programs, they can stack significant expertise and credentials and graduate multiple times from UWG. And so as you all are thinking about future programs, this is very well received by chambers of commerce, by businesses, by school districts, by regions, by legislators. It's showing the value of academics and higher education and meeting workforce demand. I've said it before and I'll echo it again here. The diversity of a comprehensive institution is a strength. We are uniquely positioned in the state and in this region to offer a wide variety of academic programs. Students might come and take courses in some certain areas, maybe not in that major, but valuing that experience and then applying in different areas. Combining the arts and technology, the Winter West light sculptures are a great example of that. So students are just looking for one thing. They're looking for a multitude of things. Allowing them to combine multiple disciplines is really, really important. And as a comprehensive institution, we have a wide array of offerings that students connect with. I value that, and I see a strong future in all of that going forward. One of our pillars of the strategic plan being relevance, we need to constantly be looking at what are our academic programs offering, and is that something we instituted 20 years ago, or is it something that we instituted 2 years ago? When's the last time we put eyes on it? And I'm happy to say that Dr. Drake has worked extensively with each of the academic programs to identify course coordinators for every single course at UWG. This was a project that we worked on all fall semester, and people would scratch their head and say, well, what is a course coordinator? I teach this course, but is this a program coordinator? It's much simpler than that. It is the person that we go to among our academic peers to say, you're the expert of this course. Now, of course, our colleagues can comment and provide input, but you're the one that's keeping the eye on the pulse of this, and how is it meeting the curricular need, and how is it fitting into the entire academic program? Doesn't need to be modified. And if I've got a part-time person, or maybe someone who's teaching this for the first time, and they do something new and different, should we graft that in because it's working and it's great and it's innovative and modernizing every single one of our courses? Then the next question should be, well, how does that fit into my workload and my annual review? It should fit right into that teaching and innovation space. And I encourage the course coordinators to enumerate, this is what I've done in this course and this course and this course. I'm keeping it modern, I'm keeping it current, I'm keeping it relevant. And if it needs to change textbooks or change radically, then certainly the department would hear from that course coordinator about what are you recommending that we do and change. So on the UPC and the GPC agendas, when you see modify, 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 hopefully the genesis of that was that faculty person clearly as part of owning the curricula, bringing those recommendations forward. Two more things that I'd like to focus on. I'm not going to steal the thunder of Kevin Gwaltney on the QAP, but I do want to tie in the future of academics and where higher ed is going, and specifically where UWG is going, to our QAP, which we will be piloting in this upcoming calendar year, focused on experiential learning and career readiness. Externally, that is very needed. And it positions our students to be able to answer that question. Tell me about a project that you worked on, or tell me about something that you've done unique that the other 9 candidates for this internship or this job can't speak to. It strengthens our students in the marketplace, and it clearly signals to companies and to nonprofits and to others in the community that West Georgia is a resource for them to come to for R&D, for prototyping, and for talent going forward into their businesses. And lastly, I want to talk about the common course content. This was an item that came up last Faculty Senate. I'd like to give you an update on it. The Teaching, Learning, and Assessment Committee and the Institute for Faculty Excellence and others have been working to define what this looks like. I'll remind us that this doesn't tell us what goes into a course. It just provides a common roadmap. When I log into D2L, I know when I click here, here, and here, I'm going to get the syllabus. When I click elsewhere, I'm going to get the discussion space. My analogy last month was I can go to any city in the US and road signs look very similar, right? Red, 8-sided means stop, right? Yellow triangle means yield, green means go. In the same way, when students log in, regardless of the course, the content certainly changes, and the faculty are putting that in. But where they click, where's the announcement? What's the latest? How do I turn in assignments? How do faculty verify roster? Are all going to be common, and removing all of that friction and unknown is going to be incredibly helpful, not only to reduce the work that faculty have to do to deliver courses, but it's also going to give students an assurance of when was that assignment due? Did I actually turn it in? Do you have it? Right, the checkbox that says, yes, your assignment has been received, relieves all of that stress. And can't we all do a little less stress, right? In particular, our students. Happy to dive into any of this, answer any questions that you've got. Yes.
Thank you for all that information, and thank you for addressing that issue about the sort of standardization of programs. If you work with a lot of people are thinking the same thing, oh, this, they don't know the way to it, they'll be telling us exactly what goes in, but now we know it's just a framework.
Yes.
Go back and tell my colleagues that it's not they're not going to be told what to teach, as it were, as long as we're covering the learning. So thank you very much for that, Karen. And second, what you both here, we used to doing costs, financial situation different and what have you. But occasionally there were grant, and some of you might remember, there were occasionally grant writing workshops that we'd have in the summer. And I've never been, and I'd love to have the opportunity for a grant writing. I don't know how many of you have been on any of these when we were in Clark, but I never went on any of those. And I wondered if it would be possible for interested faculty to have a grant writing workshop.
I'm going to say absolutely yes. And I appreciate your enthusiasm and interest. The logistics of, and I know Dr. Ela and I talk about this all the time, we want to be supportive of faculty, people who've done it, and then also your peers, your other colleagues who have gone before and done this successfully. They can provide some guidance as well. But absolutely, we'll take that to heart.
It's like,
It's already done. He's going to get in touch with all of you.
okay.
I would take it a step further. We talk to a lot of people who are, especially when it comes to federal grants, that's a changing environment. We have to bring in, some consultancy to help elevate our game. We'll do that too. That's a critical part. I'm going to tell you right now, higher education, we don't go after more grants. We cannot perform the way we have as a university and sustain ourselves over the next 10 years the way we have over the last time. We have to increase that extra elements in the community. So great questions is what we have.
Yeah, can I kind of add to that? There's really a few things that absolutely every week, Dr. Ela is sending me calls for proposals of who should get this, right? So a clearinghouse, or you also offer coffee and cookies, every Thursday? Help me out. Every Thursday, right? So it can also be one-on-one conversations. I love the idea of let's bring folks that are interested in this together and let's equip you officially, but informally reach out. Before you walk through the door, connect and schedule a time. The other is that you mentioned summer, and I'm all for that, but I also respect faculty's time, that if you're not on contract, then let's offer these workshops during the academic year as well. So for those that are off, and the last point I would say is one of the benefits of bringing these external dollars would be to provide financial support in the summer. Yes, we do need teaching in the summer, but the best way to guarantee your summer salary is to own it through these grants, and then it's not subject to enrollment and availability of teaching. So you're kind of holding the rudder at that point. But we're on it. Great question.
Regarding, and thank you again. Regarding teaching load, there are some programs that are going to have to because of the reduction in work, right?
So based on demand, which I think will be increased, and if we look at the priority of non-renewals appropriately respects those with tenure and who have progressed through tenure track. So if the non-renewals were in senior lecture, then you're right, we're vacating 8+ sections of teaching capacity per person. And to backfill that with the faculty who are at West Georgia, it doesn't necessarily mandate that you're at a 4-4, but it does require that people are going to shift in the courses that they're teaching, and perhaps in the number of courses that they're teaching. Again, though, I emphasize that's a malleable thing, that we can increase the capacity, so we're not increasing the number of sections. I'll speak personally, going from an intro programming, teaching very large sections with breakout recitation and using graduate assistants to do those recitations. There's a number of ways of addressing this. So I want to be very clear, it's not a mandate, you must do a 4-4. It's a conversation with the faculty and the chair and the dean.
But in follow up, in some programs where they're writing intensive, like English.
Yep.
The cap best practices is the cap be what we currently have now or lower. So that'll probably ensure, or not ensure, but make it so that the 4-4 is probably going to happen.
Pushing to that, right? And it's pedagogically just dependent upon this. So in computing, if you were to tell me in intro programming, I've taught sections of 200. I know that is a rather large number. I'm not advocating our CS department go to 200 students, but it's dependent upon the design and the pedagogy in the academic area. So there's no one answer.
And then another question, in the UC there were some of these reduction fours. And so are we seeing then, will we see a shift of any kind? Going into, I'm just wondering in terms, will there be another reorganization in terms of?
There is nothing planned currently. So if you're saying that we've got faculty in CAXI, I'll say CAXI and UC because I think we're talking about English and math. What people are teaching will perhaps shift, but whether we change academic home departments is not been determined. And I defer to the deans to talk with their faculty. You might have someone who says, yes, I'd love to teach one prep, 4 sections of, and then the next question would then become, does it make sense to shift academic home department? Maybe, maybe not. We're not there yet. And additionally, if enrollments grow, then why shift to only shift back? So good question.
I just want to make sure that's clear because I have heard from some faculty that they were told by their chairs that they would have to teach a 4-4. And I just want to clarify, you have said that is not necessarily the case. That is a conversation that needs to be had where options like fewer electives or upper level courses, for example, might offset intro courses with cap restrictions, Or if there aren't cap restrictions, that would be another option. So I just want to alleviate some of the concern because I got a good number of emails of people saying, I'm going to be forced to do a 4-4 fall 2023. And I think that's not what I'm hearing you say. So I just want to be sure I'm clear on that.
Correct, and I would challenge the verb forced, right?
Yeah.
I greatly respect faculty's input on how we should be delivering, which courses we should offer. And if I've got an elective that, you know, I teach at a graduate level for 6 students and it's great, and valuable, but we're going to pause that for a year or two so that I'm not, you know, going from a 3 to a 4 per semester. That's on the table. The formula in my mind is we have these many students who want these courses. Then the question becomes pedagogically, what is the cap? We should find how many sections, and then we schedule. And then that leads towards workloads, and we can adjust as necessary. So,
But as someone who's been intimately involved with course scheduling, sometimes that's not going to work. And it is going to be sometimes. There are going to be faculty who are going to forward.
Right. And I'm not claiming these faculty had it right from the message they received, but it wasn't clear that it would be some faculty or it was, you know, we're going to be on 4-4s in the fall. So obviously it's going to be needed in some cases, but not in all. And I hope people are looking at options of alternatives like raising caps or reducing number of other courses where possible. But yes, I understand that. I just want to make sure that whoever's listening in the, you know, faculty sphere are hearing that it's not a mandate coming from the provost that there will be across a program, all faculty teaching a 4-4 load.
I do also want to go back to the handbook, and the reason I emphasize that teaching a 4-4 load should not be viewed as punitive. This is the faculty through the handbook have decided this is the default, and I again emphasize that if that is your workload, you should have a very successful and supported career through annual review, promotion, and tenure, pre and post tenure review.
May I just follow up? This is relevant to the timeline for PTR, P&T, and annual review guidelines. So as departments and programs are working on those guidelines, the history of our university, so maybe 20 years ago, those who were here, we were moving to the possibility of having 3-3 loads as allowed for by justifying that by showing that you were doing a certain amount of research and scholarship. So the policy has always been 4-4. And then different departments at the time wrote up basically justifications for why a faculty member could have a 3-3 load. What I think has happened is culturally, people have started to just talk like we have 3-3 loads here at West Georgia. And so as we develop these guidelines, they ought to speak to the handbook policy, which is a 4-4 load. And so the expectations for things like research and scholarship should be designated for a 4-4 load. And then where there's workload adjustments, and this is going to be a question, I know, that where there's workload adjustments that need to be made, for example, to a 3-3, that would need to be justified for the dean to then say that's acceptable. So should the guidelines that are being worked on by the programs be for a 4-4 faculty, or should they be for faculty at different levels? I mean, what should people be writing up now as they prepare these important documents for how to evaluate each other within a program?
Great point. And I'll echo what I've messaged for the last 2 years, and that is I support a flexible workload model. That if you come to me with if a dean comes and says, we've got a faculty person who wants to initiate a grant, it's going to bring $1 million across the next 4 years. And in order to do that, they need to not teach this next semester or teach 1 course or 2 courses. And then you evaluate the viability of that proposal, and then you support it if it makes sense. So your workload policy ideally will say, here is what the outcomes are expected at a 4-4, at a 3-4, at a 3-3, at a 3-2, at a 2-2, at a 2-1, and so on. And it might be very rare that no teaching or 1-1, but it's certainly possible.
So our documents we prepared, because people are working on these right now for a basically April kind of deadline, they ought to address then those different levels of workload adjustment.
That's my recommendation, but it's up to the departments and the schools and colleges to either say, this is kind of a homogenized, unified view, or we support flexibility. Flexibility may or may not be viable on a per semester, per year basis, but USG policy and measurable outcomes for a faculty person can justify this, certainly.
Okay, just want to make sure people know what target to definitely aim for as they're going through these important, hurdles toward.
It is it's a heavier lift, right? To define the specificity. So people might want to bite that off now. Maybe you add that on as a goal for the upcoming academic year. It's up to the chair, the faculty and the department. Yes.
Sorry, Dr. Chris. So, I mean, this is going to be it's going to be difficult for the people who are not on the committee that are doing it. But so you can say, would it be something like, I know you mentioned flexibility, and in fact, that would be, okay, if a 4-4 for a year or two, then 6 pods are needed rather than 5. We'd have to get down into the weeds, I'm guessing. Are we?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And for external funding, it would be, dollar amounts and, publications could be acceptance rates. There's a number of ways of objectively differentiating. Not only is this a signal to the faculty that we support diversity, if they bring something forward that is unique, then we want to be able to support it, but it also creates an equitable review. And I'm sure it has happened that everywhere any of us have all worked, that, well, why does this person get this deal and I don't have an option for that, right? Everyone should have an equal playing field, and saying, if I bring something forward, it should be reviewed on its merit, not on any real or perceived favoritism. That all faculty should have access.
Because I think the problem was, as Dr. Reva said, a lot of people came here and it was a cultural 3-3, and then I think sometimes people were hired thinking it was 3-3, and then suddenly now we're talking 4 as sort of caused some consternation. When I was hired by Dave Jenks, he told me it was 4. And then every year my activity, he'd then go to the canvas to say, did we make the justification for a 3-3? And I don't know whether that was the case for everybody. I knew it was a 4 coming in, but with the child buying it down, so to speak. That's very cool.
Good question. Do you have anything online or anything else?
There's a hand raised online. You want to go?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary. I just want to comment, since we are discussing workload, the Faculty Development Committee is working on this right now. And what we are being very careful about is, first of all, to align our document as best as possible with the BOR policy, while at the same time leaving decisions on workload, promotion and tenure guidelines, evidentiary sources, etc., as local as possible. So I just wanted to interject and point that out, that it'll be rather difficult for the Faculty Development Committee to have any statements about evidentiary sources for a 3-3 versus a 4-4 load. We would rather that such language be developed at the program, department, school, and college level, with oversight provided by the dean and the provost. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. I agree with you, and perhaps the modified university handbook could talk to flexibility, just as you said with local option, and then it's per department to present those.
Yeah, I would just add, Farouk, that we definitely do want the Faculty Development Committee to keep an eye across programs, though, to make sure we don't have widely divergent sort of expectations that wouldn't make sense even with local differences. So you're not getting out of the job that easily, my friend.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks.
A little defeated, you're right there, but yeah. Any other questions from online or in the room?
I'll conclude then by saying again, thank you for a fantastic semester. All of the discussion of workload, we want to emphasize it's a diversity of workload. There's no one is better or more valued than the other. And appreciate all of the work that faculty do in service here on the Faculty Senate, and other committees, the teaching, which clearly is evidenced as our faculty, or our students are graduating in just over a week, and the scholarship, again, as evidence of 36, and let's bump it to 40, because I know that we didn't get everything in here, but you all are doing amazing work. Well-earned holiday. I hope you have a fantastic vacation after all grades are put in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're now going to turn the time over to Kevin Gwaltney, who's going to talk to us about QEP and SAC COC.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. I'm glad to hear that I and work that the group has been doing are in reference. We have some group members present. We have Dr. Allen. I saw Dr. Way online. Dr. Khan contributed to the proposal that was eventually accepted. As you're aware, the topic of QEP is experience learning and career readiness. And I've heard some great ways that students are contributing to that already, experience learning. Art project at the link, Winter West Wonderland. The research, which I'm sure included student authors on some of those. So they had to do some experiential learning to contribute to that work. And so the university is already well immersed in experiential learning. So this ties in well with the work that you are doing. So in terms of the QEP Development Work Group, which has representation, as you know, from across campus, including representatives from all the colleges and schools, multiple representatives from colleges and schools, as well as some other offices that tie into the work. And it is a work in progress. We're close to having a draft. I've talked to Dr. Weber and Dr. Swift and Dr. Corley about how we can communicate out that draft and get faculty eyes on it. So be aware that faculty eyes will be on the draft and be giving feedback, and so you have an opportunity to tie in with them. I will say that again, it's a work in progress. Things are changing. I presented at Provost Council on Monday. This is Friday, and things have changed since then. So it's a little bit different in terms of the student learning outcomes. There was some decisions made on Wednesday that shifted the decisions a little bit. But it's concerned on experience learning and career readiness, specifically on having experience learning opportunities that have defined career readiness connections. This is for credit and not for credit experiences. For credit experiences, including undergraduate research, internships, things that happen in some capstones and other areas. Not for credit experiences, for example, a student working on campus, maybe students involved in Winter West Wonderland, they're not doing it as a credit experience, they're doing it as not for credit for pay or for benefiting their resume. And so we want to count those as well. Through the whole time the student is here, so as early as we get students involved in these things, the better. We know that sometimes these things are backloaded in terms of the junior and senior year, but there are opportunities to tie students in earlier than that, and we want to make sure we recognize that. Colleges and schools are going to look a bit different, how they implement this. Some are internship heavy, some are undergraduate research heavy, some are involved in some other activities. And so we want to make sure we recognize the diversity there. If you go to the next slide, please.
Do you want me to put it as a slideshow?
That'd be great. If you're able to click through kind of quickly, because it's
I can put it over here if you want to do it.
That's great. Yeah.
Part of it.
We're going to assess the QEP with student reflections, so students thinking about how their experience ties in to how they might be comparing them for a career. Talk a little more about that in a minute. Mentors for the experience will be able to opt in to being in the QEP. We hope they all do, but especially, for example, with the not for credit experiences, that's gonna be something where professors and staff members can opt in and agree to QEP definitions. Those definitions are working out in alignment with some things you've already seen. For example, the definitions of high impact practices that have gone through faculty senate. So similar to the process and in fact tying into the process that's being used to count those types of things already with the HIPS project. Not all HIPS, high impact practices, are experiential learning, but a lot of them are. And so that work will be in coordination. We have some goals laid out. So we want to count opportunities. We'll hope that those opportunities to increase as they go through the time period. I will say, as a little background, again, we're working on a draft now. We'll send that out draft off to some reviewers at SAC COC after piloting on campus, after some reviews on campus locally. get a review back, we'll send it back again, with some revisions, we'll get another review, in 2024. And so we're really talking about full implementation in 24-25, but we won't stop what we're doing before then. And then we'll report out about 5 years after that. And so over that time period, the hope is to increase experience learning opportunities and student participation. And we're going to count that the same way we're counting HIPs, with some other ways to count, for example, for non-credit courses. We have a goal of supporting mentors, so training mentors to be able to lead experience learning opportunities. In terms of student learning, we want to catch students very early and make them aware of experience learning and how it's important for careers. And then at the end of their time at West Georgia, have them be able to articulate how those experiences that they participated in, multiple experiences that their time at West Georgia prepared them for a career. In terms of student success, one of the things that we want to look at is using a survey. It's a national survey that's used to track students in terms of their employment and graduate school acceptance. We already use that at West Georgia. It's the NACE First Destination Survey. What we'd like to do is to expand that, and so that more students are taking it and we get better response on that. And we know more about where students are going after they leave West Georgia as a measure of that they are career ready. So in terms of timeline, as I mentioned, drafting the plan now. We're close to having a draft. And that review will begin very soon as we share it out with leadership and with, as mentioned, representatives from faculty senate, et cetera. We're going to pilot in the spring. And so this is, I'll mention in a few minutes about how you and other faculty can connect in with this, is to be willing to pilot, administer the instrument that we're going to develop, the instruments we're going to develop in coursework. Based on the pilot, we'll revise the plan. We'll submit it in September for review. We'll get feedback back and be able to revise it and submit it again. And then for the final review by SAC-COC reviewers in spring 24. And then, as I mentioned, full implementation fall 24. But again, we won't stop what we're doing. So the pilot will just basically continue until SAC-COC says it's okay to actually officially be our QEP. So as I mentioned, please give feedback as the opportunity arises. Please volunteer to be part of the pilot. What we're looking at in terms of two pieces: one, student awareness of experience learning and how it ties into careers as being something that's piloted in the first year seminar. Dr. Bronkema is going to help us make sure that happens. But in terms of the other piece is asking students near the end of their time at West Georgia, what experiences you have and how do they help you prepare for a career? We're looking at implementing that in late program required courses. And so I've sort of looked at that. I'll be reaching out to some areas about that. And as I can tell, almost every program has a course that's very clearly a required course, happens very late in their career. Some of them I'm not sure about. I have to ask chairs and deans and things about which course they'd like to use for that. But we'll get a selection of those courses from each college and school to be able to run the instrument to test it. And then just promote experience learning and career readiness and that tie-in. And so anytime you have an opportunity, try to convince students to do experience learning more than they're doing now. Whenever you have the opportunity, remind students that that experience that they're doing ties into what might be your career. And sometimes it's not as obvious connection. I know when I was teaching at the college level, I would see that quite a bit students would say, well, that course that I took, it didn't help prepare me for a career. Well, yes, it did, because it taught you how to learn new and diverse and complex things. And that's something you can apply in a career. So for example, working on campus, say for a student, for example, a student working in food service, maybe they don't see how that connects, but they're living in a work experience where they have to deal with management, they have to deal with customers, and that's what a lot of careers do. And so helping students remind students that these things they're doing do tie in to a career, even if it's not as seamlessly as one-to-one correlation. They do an internship in a business, a marketing business, because they're a marketing major and then they get a marketing job. It's not necessarily that direct line of correlation, but it does help prepare them for a career. Any questions?
So if people want to volunteer, they should contact you?
Yes, please. Yeah. And again, we're looking at one of the things being as late career autonomous Georgia required courses, so we can make sure that we're capturing all our students in terms of that survey. And so if we wouldn't want to use electives, we wouldn't want to use a required course that happens in the second year typically. So we're looking at that sort of culminating type experience, capstones, senior seminars, practicum type courses.
And that's just for spring, or is that also?
Initially in spring, but we'll continue the process. So we'll provide it based on that pilot and then run it again in the fall, hopefully at scale in the fall. And so it'll be a bigger pilot in the fall. And then we'll look for gaps and issues and revise again and run again in spring 24, and then again revise in spring 25. I will say that the QEP is never done evolving until we report out at the end about 6 years from now. And so we have the opportunity to look at continuously, and we will do, as part of what we need to do is meta assessment. Look at what we're doing and think about, is this working? And if it's not working, then and we'll continually.
If the capstone course is mostly done as an independent study rather than being offered as a schedule every semester, so it's a small amount of students, that's still worth doing a pilot for, or?
Absolutely. We want to get a diverse array, as long as it's something that students are required to do. So for that program, it says somewhere, you must take capstone. Where they get it and how many students are in there, we want a diversity, because we want to cover all of it. So yeah, great. Yeah.
Just to add from the Senate perspective, because a couple different committees have some involvement with QEP, we'll be forming an ad hoc task force that will mostly draw from representatives of those committees, mostly IPC, institutional planning, and teaching and learning assessment. So the mechanism by which we're going to be giving feedback will primarily be through that task force, though we'll be including the Senate more broadly as we roll that out. So.
Yeah, I reached out to Dr. Rubber because I looked up the committee charges, and 2 of them said QEP. I'm like, where do I go? And they said, we'll fix that. So thank you for that.
Farouk, was your hand up, or does anyone online have anything they want to?
Yes, ma'am. My hand is up. Is this a good time for me to comment?
Sure.
Okay, really briefly, Mr. Provost, I will not ask you for resources in this set of comments. But I have a couple of other points. I think that the emphasis on career readiness is so wonderful that my colleagues and I, as we are writing grants to NSF, are including this in our broader impact section, that we are helping students prepare for careers, even as they are taking part in course-related activities. Along the same lines, has your, this is a question now for Dr. Gwaltney. I have enormous feedback from Dr. Geisler, who is a committee chair, and she's 2 doors down from me. But are all of you thinking about writing grants to foundations where one could emphasize care readiness? And secondly, in my opinion, this would be an excellent opportunity to advertise West Georgia in the region. And I'm not in the advertising business, but it would run something like this. Give us our students and we will give you career-ready professionals, something to that effect. Are we thinking about advertising right now? And thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Chairman.
So we have to discuss marketing QEP. That will be a part of what we need to do, both internally and externally. No final decisions on how we're going to do that, but that's something we thought about. We have some thoughtful taglines and descriptions to use in marketing that we've drafted, but we need to communicate with the appropriate administrators to sort of run those by them before we run them out. And then your other comment about grants, I think is an excellent idea. I think that's something that could definitely tie in to increasing opportunities, because funding is important, and some of these activities require funding. And so if we get external grants that can help with that, then that's going to help us increase opportunities, which is one of the goals.
Can I speak to the advertising piece? Dr. John, that's a great point. We have 2 frameworks that currently exist. One, the I Am West campaign has a built-in ability to include that. We also have which is kind of for a different class of reader or consumer, a go west, go to work framework, where we really get to focus in on connecting the dots between the experiential learning that exists here and post-graduation outcomes. And we will continue to expand on those and make that core to our story.
And in fact, that ties in with one of our draft taglines, which is I am West, I am career ready. So I will say that as a draft, the first draft came out that says I am West, I am work ready. We like the W's, but somebody pointed out that sometimes work has a connotation that we want to maybe avoid. So we switched to I am West, I am career ready. So I write that perfect. Yep. Hope to see that on the website maybe next year. So.
Thank you.
Very good. Any
Thank you.
other questions for Dr. Gwaltney? Thank you so much. Okay. As we were talking about Winter West Wonderland, it occurred to me, I was kind of thinking back about my own children. I have 4 children and I have a daughter, my oldest daughter right now is getting her EDD here. She got her EDS and MA here, though she went elsewhere for her undergrad. I have a son who's finishing his MA in English. I have a son who did dual enrollment here, and my daughter just last week applied to West Georgia. So all 4 of them have some connection to West Georgia. And what, yeah. I am more West Georgia than I thought it was going to be. What struck me about that is that since we moved here in 2000, I remember going to the very first, for us, our family trick or treat, which was in Tyus Hall, where we went up and down stairs constantly to go get candy from kids, giving them out from the students, giving them out from their dorms. And I remember that Easter, we were the only family that showed up for the Easter egg hunt. And my kids got all the candy. They got every egg. So they were like, man, West Georgia is awesome. You know, you get lots of candy there. I don't know how much that candy influenced their decisions, but I'm pretty confident because they were involved in West Georgia in various ways over the years. 2 of my sons went to pre-K. They've gone to, the physics demonstrations and things like that. I'm pretty sure that rubbed off. And those of you who have had my children in your classes, thank you for teaching them, by the way. You know that I'm not bragging here, but they could have gone anywhere. I mean, these are very smart kids that could have gone to any university school. And they're great students, but they chose at some point throughout their educational career to make West Georgia a place to study. So things like the Winter West Wonderland, you might not recognize how that sinks in to a young person's sort of heart and mind and makes an association with West Georgia. So that's just one anecdote, but I think it speaks to the value of these engagement opportunities that are being provided for the community and especially young people in the community. With that said, I do want to remind you of a couple things from the Senate Chair's perspective. The next chat with the Senate Chair will be January 9th. It'll be at 1:30 p.m. That is the first day back in classes, I know, but given how successful the last chat with Chair was, I had 0 attendees, but I had some really good emails that came in, and I don't care. I can talk to myself. I'm a psychologist, so it's not a problem. But I had 0 attendees, but I had great emails with great questions that the provost just addressed today. So however that process works, in person, email, whatever, keep your questions, comments, ideas coming so I can continue to work effectively with the provost. And also a number of the things you asked about were things I was able to assign to different committees to work on as well. So we're going to keep that going, whether you come or not, and you're welcome to come next time. So January 9th at 1:30. The other is the Faculty Welfare Committee, which I mentioned. We know that some of these non-renewal letters, have all of them gone out, or can I ask that? Some have gone out? They're out. Okay, they're going out. And so we want to be available to you who are getting those letters, but also faculty are impacted by these strategic alignment activities in other ways, just like workload and things like that. So you'll need to reach out to us. We care about you and want to reach out, but we don't want to impose. So if we can be of use to you, the Faculty Senate Executive Committee will be making available some times in the spring where we can just meet with you and try to provide support, resources, opportunities from helping you with applying to jobs in other places and anything else we can do. Our hearts are with you as you go through that difficult transition. That's all I have from the Senate Chair. Any questions for me? Okay, do we have any general committee updates from any of our committee chairs in the room or online? Before we get to other business,
Mike said you had a humble brag.
what was that?
You have a humble brag.
Humble brag by Jack.
Dennis says we need to talk.
And then what?
An update.
Okay, well, Michael, first of all, let me just say, I hope all of our children are smarter than we are, right? I mean, come on. And I think if they are smart, it has a lot to do with the things they've been taught right here at this institution, so.
Might be a hand raised.
So take that, Michael. Who was it?
Is there a hand raised? Anyone else?
Okay, Minna, I think Minna was good.
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead, Minna.
yes. I have an update from the budget committee. I think I said this in the last meeting, but I want to update again that our new chair will be Blynn Olivia Parker, and wonderful chair for our budget committee. And then I have another update about the equity study that we have talked about. And actually, the word equity study is a little bit misleading. There's a work group consisting of 2 members of budget committee, Lucretia Gibb and I, and then Suzanne Garrett and Sonia Adams from Academic Affairs. And Provost asked us to do equity study, and we call it now market study because it only focuses on pay. It does not focus on any other types of equity. But obviously, equity study would be very beneficial. And I talked with Mike Hester as well as Provost about this. And our diversity and internationalization committee has discussed about this already. And we think there might be some data that could be analyzed to dig deeper into this issue. But that was the update that I wanted to do because I have received some questions about what does the equity study mean. It's a market study, and then the equity study comes next. And I believe there's also one in works by HR for staff. So equity in pay.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Any questions?
Questions for Minna?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jason, please.
I just wanted to let everyone know, information will come out soon, but Ally will become active December 13th. Ally is an accessibility software that will be embedded in Coursera, and it will let you know the accessibility, how accessible your documents are within that. There are knowledge base links that will get out to you that have information about it, and also IFB and UWG Online, but especially IFB, they're available to help you out in terms of any learning, in terms of creating, let's say a PDF. If a PDF is not ADA accessible, they can help you to make that or help you in terms of that accessibility issue. One last point about that, it was piloted 49 instructors, 10 students accepted in this semester, and overall the feedback was very positive.
Thank you. Great. Any other committee reports in general? Anybody?
There's a hand raised.
Okay.
Whoever has your hand raised, go for it.
Thank you. Very briefly, our committee, the Faculty Development Committee, met for a 5th time, and we are fairly close to converging on the revisions to the faculty handbook. We will try and complete our work perhaps during the week of finals, but if that doesn't happen, hopefully sometime in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Okay, we're going to turn the time over to Kim Green for undergraduate programs.
UPC has 3 proposals for a vote. The first is a Nexus in Acting. So Nexus being, again, one of the programs that can be completed in 2 years. This program includes courses in both basic acting and acting for the camera that will prepare students for opportunities both in the film and television industry and live theater industry. And in addition to the acting courses, this program is including the business of acting and how to market oneself as an actor. This program will be the first of its kind in the university system. And the program design has received support from talent agents and live theater producers in the state. It's being built using existing courses, so no additional courses will be included for this proposal. Are there any questions about the nexus and acting? Okay, so we'll vote all in favor of the nexus and acting. Okay, any opposed? Any abstaining? Thanks. Next, we have a revision to the course Biology 2021. The revision here is to change the grade requirements for the prerequisite courses from a minimum grade of B to a minimum grade of C. This course is primarily taken by nursing and community health and wellness students, and the higher prereq grades have been found to be barriers to student progression, but were found not to actually be contributing to the students' performance and ability to handle the coursework in the class. In many cases, students have been taking these prerequisites at other schools and transferring them in to bypass this requirement or to facilitate the requirement. So the prerequisites that are involved here would be a choice of six introductory science courses. So these are biology, chemistry, and physics introductory courses, and their associated labs are the courses that would be affected with this increase in the minimum grade. B2 decrease from B2 to C, sorry. So minimum grades for would be a requirement would be a C in these prerequisites. Any questions about the proposal? Okay, all in favor of this change? Thanks. Any opposed? Or any abstaining? Thanks. Okay. And then lastly, we have one vote for these next three proposals. The rationale is the same for all three. These proposals are creating an accelerated bachelor's to master's pathway leading to the master's in public administration, coming from either criminology BS, organizational leadership BS, or political science BS programs. And for these programs, there are 4 6,000 level political science courses that will have been identified to count in place of their 4,000 level political science counterparts. And this change will increase the competitiveness of the program by making it possible for students to complete both degrees in 5 years, which is more in line with what other programs in this location are offering. Any questions about this? Okay. So all in favor of this proposal? Great, thank you. Any opposed? Or any abstaining?
Thank you.
Okay.
Patrick.
Good afternoon. The Graduate Programs Committee has 3 proposed program modifications in CAXI and 1 new course proposal in the graduate school. Our first proposal from the Department of English, Film, Language, and Performing Arts is a proposed modification to the English MA program. The program is aligning its program tracks to the BOR recommendation that master's programs require 30 credit hours for completion. This proposal eliminates the non-thesis track, previously 36 coursework hours, allowing students to choose between a thesis track and a capstone track of 30 credit hours each. The program is also eliminating the previous requirement of an oral exam for both tracks. These changes will allow the program to increase its competitiveness and attract students while still providing the rigorous graduate training that is relevant to the contemporary market. Any questions about this proposal? Okay, let's launch the poll. Those in favor of this proposal, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Thank you. The next proposal, still in the Department of English, Film, Language, and Performing Arts, is for the Master of Music with a concentration in music education. This proposal is to modify the admissions policy to change from the current requirement of 3 letters of recommendation to 1 required statement of recommendation. This change addresses challenges a non-traditional student may face in procuring recommendations when several years removed from their undergraduate work. It also addresses the fact that recommenders have the opportunity to type their recommendation into a field as opposed to writing, signing, and uploading a more traditional recommendation letter. The program is confident about maintenance of quality control because in addition to the transcript, the recommendation, and the personal statement, the program also administers a proctored qualifying exam to all incoming students before they start questions. Are there any questions about this proposal? Okay, we can launch the poll. All those in favor of this proposal, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Thank you. Our next proposal is in the Department of Natural Sciences. It's a modification to the Biology MS program. The program is requesting the removal of the graduate record exam from the requirements for admission because this is a financial barrier for many potential applicants, and the exam scores are not an accurate and complete predictor of success in the master's program. This will increase the program's potential number of applicants. This is also in line with the MS in Integrative Biology degree program offered at Kennesaw State University, which does not require GRE scores for applications. The program is also requesting to reduce the total number of credit hours needed to complete the program from 36 hours to 30 hours. This change will align with the new BOR policy allowing for master's programs to be 30 hours. The credit hour reduction will assist in recruitment by allowing the program to be competitive with similar graduate programs in our region. Any questions about this proposal? Okay, we can launch the poll. All those in favor of this proposal, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Thank you. Our final proposal is for a new course in the graduate school, Grad 7000, Prior Learning and Work Experience. The rationale for this course is that the graduate school needs an administrative course at 0 credit hours to hold students who are seeking prior learning assessment or PLA credit. This course allows the graduate school to assign students to a faculty member and a department to assess their work experience. Any questions about this new course proposal? All right, we can launch the poll. All those in favor of this new course proposal, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Thank you. And one brief announcement regarding GPC. Our first agenda deadline will be January 6th, the Friday before the first day of classes next semester. The full list of meetings, agenda deadlines, and GPC meetings will be posted on the website and in the next faculty senate newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just for those online, all presented items here were approved in text.
Okay. Any items of business or announcements before we adjourn? All right, then I want to wish everybody a great end to your semester and a relaxing, I hope, holiday and recharging yourselves for coming back in January. Take care, everybody. Thank you. We're adjourned.